A very warm welcome to the new episode of Ink and Insights. This is your host, Sumit Sarma Samir. This is a Nepal based podcast, and if you are interested listening to the thought leaders from around the world and also Nepali entrepreneurs, please subscribe to my channel. I'm extremely pleased to welcome an award winning film director, Konstantin Bojanov, in my program today. Konstantin Bojanov is an award winning Bulgarian American film director, screenwriter, and visual artist. He graduated from the National School of Fine Arts in Sofia, Bulgaria, and earned his master's degree from the Royal College of Art in London. In 1995, he moved to Los Angeles and a year later settled in New York City. Constantine's career as a filmmaker began with the acclaimed documentaries Lemon is Lemon and Invisible. His feature debut, Ave, premiered at Cannes Critics Week, amassing over 20 international awards. His second feature, Light Thereafter, starring Barry Keoghan, had its world premiere in competition at the Rotterdam Film Festival and was nominated for the prestigious Tiger Award. Bojanov's latest film, the Shameless, was premiered in uncertain regard of the official selection of the Cannes Film Festival. The movie Shameless received an award at the 77th Cannes Film Festival. Anusuya Sengupta won the Uncertain Regard Prize for Best Actress for her performance in the film. Konstantin is preparing his new movie as well. His films have been showcased at over 200 international film festivals and have been distributed worldwide. Beyond the realm of cinema, Konstantin's artwork had been exhibited in numerous art galleries and museums. It is such a pleasure to have him in my show. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anytime.
Konstantin, you must be very pleased, the way your movie Shameless was premiered in Cannes Film Festival this year and the way it was received.
I mean, personally, I couldn't have imagined a better platform or a better festival for the film to premiere and to go out into the world. I was extremely pleased, not just me, but the crew that attended and the producers that attended the premiere by the premiere and the reception of the film. And of course, Anasuya Sengupta's win of the best performer in Uncertain Regard. And ironically, given the history of, the great history of Indian cinema, for the first time, an Indian actor, wins an acting award at Cannes. So in some ways, I'm extremely happy about her, and Anasuya made history. But it's not just her. I think the entire cast of the film, and that includes not just the Indian but also the Nepali actors that were a part of it, were fantastic. I couldn't be happier with the choices that I made in terms of the cast of the film.
Right. So it's a very interesting sort of connection here. I just would like to highlight. It was also shot in Nepal, I presume.
The entire film was shot in Nepal. I would say approximately 80% of it was shot in Kathmandu. We played it as a non-fictional city in northern India. The film is not a realistic drama, and I intentionally wanted it to be sort of somewhat separated from the reality and a few degrees. So I even rewrote the script to fit the sort of architecture and the layout of Kathmandu with its sort of vertical architecture and narrow alleyways and streets, and I made that very much part of the story. After the initial scouting in November, December of 2022, I went to Bangkok for a couple of weeks and rewrote the script entirely to sort of change the story so that we could shoot the film in Nepal.
So in that context, how do you see the potentiality of Nepal in terms of getting films being shot here?
I'm pretty sure that more and more films will be international films will be shot in Nepal. I'm not vastly familiar with the national film productions, except for the film that made it out on the sort of international festival circuit. But I think Nepal is yet to be discovered and yet to be explored by international and Indian filmmakers. I'm pretty sure that this will start happening, and then in some ways I'm also convinced that the visibility of the Shameless and obviously we talk about shooting the film in Nepal everywhere, that hopefully will also bring other international productions to Nepal.
That's a great news indeed. And can you please tell us how did all this started in terms of the idea of Shameless originated? How did it originated, and how did you sort of went through the entire process?
I mean, the entire process kind of borders on insanity because I begun working on this project 12 years ago. I mean, I had no plans, despite my long-standing connection to India. I had no plans of making a film there. But in 2012, I came across a book of nine non-fictional short stories in my bookstore in Brooklyn, New York. And some of these stories sort of greatly intrigued me. The connection, the book is called Nine Lives by Willem Dalrymple, a historian and non-fiction writer based in India. He's a Brit based in India for the past 30 years. And I was sort of greatly intrigued by the relationship of some of these characters to art, primarily, to the art they were practicing, to caste, to religion, to tradition, modernity. So I optioned the book with the idea of making a documentary based on four of these stories. I spent 4 months on the roads of India, covering clocking over 10,000 kilometers on the road, looking for the protagonists of these four stories, because some of the characters in the book were real people. The rest were sort of composites of sort of characters with similar background and circumstances. And in the winter of 2014, we began shooting the first of these stories. Actually, it was not. We didn't. It was not like a proper production. The idea was to shoot part of the first story, to show the sort of the visual language, the approach to the story, in order to raise funding for the documentary film. And the central character of the story was a 33-year-old Devadasi sex worker from northern Karnataka, called Reshma. And she was a remarkable, I'm sure still is, a remarkable person. And while we were shooting the documentary, I was observing her very close relationship with her best friend, another sex worker, and there was something so loving, so tender. They were giving each other so much emotional support. I'm not implying that there was anything kind of romantic between them. I don't know, and it's besides the point. But the tenderness of that relationship juxtaposed to the extremely sort of rough environment and their occupation is where the first sort of sparks for the fictional story that later became the Shameless came from. Also, there was something else that was rather interesting to me, is that the majority of the women in the community where we were shooting the documentary were dedicated. As young prepubescent girls, they were dedicated past the year when Karnataka outlawed the practice, and Karnataka was the last state in India to outlaw the dedications. But under the banner of religion, the parents, or the mothers in this case, get a pass, and to this day, many of them continue to dedicate their daughters. It's a dying tradition, but by no means dead yet. And to go back to my original point, was that there were other women from outside, sex workers, that were also had kind of joined the community. They were usually renting rooms from the Devadasis in order to work in sort of relative protection. If there was one good aspect to the whole practice and tradition, that was that men are not involved. That the business is entirely in the hands of the women. Not that women are not capable of exploiting other women, and many of these women actually send their daughters when they're very young to the big cities where they can earn a lot more money. In the exploitation there is, I mean, I don't even want to kind of imagine it. But this is also, there was a clear hierarchy between the dedicated and non-dedicated women, in the sense that the dedicated women look down upon the non-dedicated women. I kept hearing the peppered among the Kannada like words, common whore, until I asked what that was about, and actually that was the reference to these other women that were not part of dedicated and part of the community. So I imagine the story where a woman comes from outside to hide in a community like that, and she has committed a crime, and changes also her name from a Muslim to a Hindu name in order to be able to take temporary shelter in a similar community until she figures out how to ultimately escape. So this is how the sort of the fictional story was born. Shortly after this initial period of 2 weeks when we shot the documentary, I decided to abandon the idea of the documentary and focus on a fictional story, which underwent quite a few transitions in the development. The financing took forever. I mean, it is an old project. No matter how you look at it, there was like endless skepticism towards me, coming from India as well, from Europe, for different reasons. Sometimes these reasons were like overlapping, but this is how the project sort of came together.
Right. And how difficult was it to find a central character in this context, Anusuya Sengupta, I guess?
Not that difficult. I mean, I worked. I'm very particular about. The way I cast the leads in my films. Sometimes takes me months. Even for my first feature, it took over a year. And I worked with a casting agency in Mumbai. The casting for the focus in the beginning was on the two leads. The casting went on for like 8 or 9 months. Here I need to kind of open up a bracket that at some point I was so disillusioned that I can ever make this film in India that I started thinking about making it as an animated film for adults. and at the time, a Bengali film director and a producer that I know, I shared that idea with them, suggested that I should perhaps look at the drawings of a friend of theirs, and maybe work with her on developing the sort of visual aspects of the characters and of the animated and that was Anasuya. The idea of the animated film got struck down by the sales agent and the producers very quickly. But I befriended Anasuya on Facebook because of her drawings. So
Okay.
2 years later, when we started casting, I kept looking at pictures of her on Facebook. I had no idea if she would be interested in acting at all, or if. And I sent her a private message over Facebook, asking her if she would be interested to try out for the lead. She was incredibly surprised. Actually, took her 3 days to get back to me, and then another month to send me a self tape. But once I saw her on the screen, I was certain that I had found the actress that I was looking for.
Right, right. So, tell us something about yourself. What initially inspired you to pursue a career in filmmaking and art?
Well, in art, it started very early. Like many other kids, I used to draw. That led to going to art school in Sofia, Bulgaria, at the age of 14. The art education there is slightly different than in the West. The bachelor degree program is 5 years and combines, like, for the first 3 years, also regular subjects, high school subjects. So I graduated from the National Film School with sculpture. Then studied sculpture for a semester at the National Academy, and basically left after the first semester. Worked for a very well-known Austrian artist for years, his assistant in Vienna, and then continued my studies first at the Glasgow School of Art for a semester, and then my master's degree at the Royal College. After I graduated, I had a senior fellowship in the same department from which I graduated. But I even though I studied in the fine art department, I studied at the Royal College printmaking. My interest in film perhaps begun when I was in my teens, and I even at the time made some attempts to write script for short stories. I'm sure for short films. I'm sure I had no idea what I was doing. So in terms of as a filmmaker, I'm self-taught. I didn't go to film school, and I learned the craft through doing it, through especially the writing part, through writing every single day, no matter what, for years, 6-7 hours a day. And this is unfortunately, you don't get very few people get the opportunity to constantly, like, direct films. Usually they combine it with directing television in between feature films. But I started at the Royal College and late in London with I don't like the word experimental, but let's say with collage films, that often with non-narrative collage films. Then I made a short documentary that was rather successful, that led to a feature documentary on the same subject. It was a portrait of 6 young people addicted to drugs in Sofia, Bulgaria, in the early 2000s. Sofia was flooded with heroin, and in I mean, I was reflecting on this today that none of my films are actually political. I try to, uh, as a filmmaker, I try to stay away from political issues. I have very strong personal opinions about politics, but somehow inadvertently, like, my films end up provoking a political discourse that I welcome, but not as a. It's kind of rather ironic, especially. I mean, like, the Invisible reminded me that because it was not a social drama. I kind of decided almost to give voice to these six young people, and to basically, for us as a viewer, to the viewers, to try to see the world through their eyes, rather than what led to where they are socially, and treating it as this kind of social phenomenon, with the same. I mean, the same with the Shameless. I guess it's now thinking about it, it touches on so many hot topic issues that it's almost unavoidable, not to that will happen. Actually, the discourse around women's rights, gay rights, sex workers' rights, the rise of the political right. All these things are sort of in the background, as well as the religious tradition that is creates that's is part of the context within which the story takes place.
True. True. I think perhaps nothing operates in isolation. So there has to have some sort of relationships there. Konstantin, I guess, the Ave was your film which received critical acclaim. And what was the inspiration behind this film, and what challenges did you face during its production?
Um, Ave was my first fiction feature film, and it was inspired in my all my films, kind of all my stories usually begin with what if something happens, and where that would lead. There was some autobiographical elements in the film, such as one of my best friends in art school committed suicide a month before we graduated, when we were 19. His death affected me profoundly, as one can imagine, and kind of cured me for some time of my own suicidal tendencies. But I remember that when like, the last time I saw him, we went to see Easy Rider, the Dennis Hopper movie. And it's a movie that I didn't quite at the time fully understand. And we sort of parted ways. Said to each other, "We'll see you on Monday." And on Monday, I arrived at school, and I was going up the stairs to my classroom. I ran into one of our classmates, who told me, "Do you know that so and so committed suicide on Saturday?" So basically, turned around and sat on the road to hitchhike to his village on the Danube. And that decision was not a matter of not having money. It was not even a rational decision, because, like, hitchhiking, which I used to do a lot because of the thrill of it, of the sort of this emotional roller coaster that it put me through. But impulsively, even I decided to hitchhike to the village where he came from for the funeral. So I took a situation like that, but imagine that the character that sits on the road, who is not really me, it's a very different person than me, meets a sort of a compulsive liar, someone that is constantly keeps inventing different sort of identities for, like, or keeps presenting herself under different identities as they travel together, and almost they're unable to kind of to separate, and ultimately culminating into the protagonist changing his attitude towards this girl 180 degrees, and even kind of realizing what she, through all these lies, what she was able to kind of to give him, and the solace that, because once they arrive at the village together, she starts presenting herself as the girlfriend of the dead boy, and the family is kind of profoundly touched, and the protagonist literally wants to strangle her, because he feels that this lie has gone way too far. And it was a coming of age. It was a road movie. I'm very partial to road movies. It was a coming of age story, and also it was a story of two people that are trying to escape difficult circumstances. And by that, I don't mean difficult that they come from poor families, but kind of emotionally difficult situations, and sort of finding each other. And the theme of escape seems to be the theme of escape, the theme of sort of identity, and can we mold our identity? Can we change our identity? To what degree we have control over our destiny? These themes kind of seem to run through all my films so far, including the one that I'm preparing now, including the Shameless, where we have a woman on the run, trying to sort of escape from very difficult circumstances and become basically entering this somewhat insular community that operates by its own traditional and rather draconic rules as an imposter. And none of my films actually are personal in a way that I put myself in them. Obviously, as I mentioned with Ave, I would take certain situations from my life. I mean, everything kind of filters through me, obviously, in a rather profound way, because otherwise I wouldn't be dedicating years of my life to these projects, which really is borders on insanity. I said that earlier, but I truly believe it. So the money didn't come together easy for that film as well, and actually having made three fiction features on a shoestring budget, I'm getting pretty sort of tired of these kind of DIY films, because ultimately the quality of the films suffer. Ultimately, I cannot bring them to the point. I end up compromising so much that I don't. At the end, I don't know how the I don't the entire integrity of the film is not destroyed. It's very, and it's not about huge budgets. It's about adequate budgets, because you can. And I've never so far had an adequate budget for a film.
Films. Do you feel that there is still a challenge in terms of having this enough financial backup with that of maintaining the credibility or integrity of the films?
I mean, so far that hasn't happened. Let's see. Let's see with the next film. Um, but it is, big budgets are not a recipe for good films. But an adequate budget definitely helps you to achieve the sort of the maximum, um, in terms of what the artistic intention is. And it is time. Time is your biggest enemy on set. I mean, I don't want to go into too many details that were created in Nepal by working under basically French rules, uh, giving us extremely short shooting days, and for a film that already had a vastly sort of inadequate number of shooting days, to to start with.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, somehow, actually, The Shameless is the first film that I've made that I'm kind of okay with, and I was not only able to watch it after we finished it, but I look forward to actually seeing it finished for the first time. I saw it. I saw it fully finished for the first time in Cannes, because the sound mix, due to our like budgetary issues, the sound mix was actually, we did the sound mix after we found out that the film was selected for Cannes. Before that, I was even the producers the producers were saying we consider the film completed without sound mix, and to me that was the most ridiculous thing that. So there was a bit of a standoff from the so but even its imperfections are somehow kind of organic, and the film is kind of, for good or bad, is very me. Some of the criticism that I read of the film was that the nature of the elliptical story, the storytelling, they were calling it uneven, and because the film also combines various genre elements, from from sort of elements of drama to crime thriller, to a love story, including these sort of visions that the younger character has, that they're almost like elements of magic realism. I mean, they're not many. So it's so the film. My main goal was to create a sort of a gripping narrative that like keeps you glued to the screen from the first to the last shot. And everything else was not unimportant, but in a way secondary. And in I think I was successful in my initial goal. But the focus very often is on the sort of the, I wouldn't say less important, but on the sort of the addition, the secondary sort of layers.
Right. Have you also started already working on your new project now?
I am actually right now going over the script one last time before it goes out for additional financing. I started casting last year for the lead. It's another female driven. The main character is, as in The Shameless, is also female, similar sort of age group, early 30s. She's a petty thief and a criminal. I tend to be highly sort of attracted by characters that sort of that transgress established sort of moral and social values and structures, and that live by their own moral code. And very often they are on the side of criminality. The characters like that really fascinate me. Actually, everything that I'm much more interested. I'm not. I mean, everything we do as storytellers and I guess as artists is an exploration of our own self. But I'm not that interested in myself as a subject of my stories. I'm actually interested in people in characters that are vastly different than me. Um, and also the sort of the question of morality, but not from a religious standpoint, but what we consider moral, what we consider immoral, and why, and how does morality hold us together as society from sort of killing each other. Not that we don't do that. I mean, the wars, constantly bloody, horrific wars. No matter how advanced we become as societies and technologically, we still behave in the same way towards who we consider to be our enemy. So these questions of morality, of what's right and what's wrong, and people and characters that challenge the status quo of what is moral is something that greatly interests me. I mean, in fact, the protagonist she's a national hero in India. She is a serial killer. She kills two men within the course of the story. Yet she's absolutely sort of fascinating, and in a way, you sympathize much more with her than the people that she murders. And in the new film that I'm preparing, this young woman who lost custody of her daughter because she got caught robbing a house, is now trying to correct these kind of mistakes and walk away from life of petty crime by basically committing an even bigger crime that she thinks that it will help her escape all that and regain custody of her daughter. But it's also, I'm also trying to. I love humor. I like to laugh at movies, and so the tone is it is a thriller, but with elements of black humor as well. I saw. I saw the Golden Pound winner, and now I'm blanking on the title of the film, but I had not laughed so much at a movie for a very long time, and it's kind of unusual because most movies that you see screened at big festivals, they're not comedies. I mean, it was a very, very complex comedy and starts from a very non-PC point, and the film has been criticized by many. I think the film it's exceptionally good. But I like to also make people laugh, and that's not easy. Comedy is a very, very difficult genre.
Yeah, it should be very challenging. But Konstantin, honestly, thank you so much for your time. And by the way, I really like to wish you very good luck for your new venture. And thank you so much for your time once again.
Thanks again. Thank you. Pleasure talking to you.